Welcome to another WandaVision video. Today I'm talking about episode 8. I'm kind of late on this. I wasn't able to film this weekend, so I'm going to go a little light on the recap part and focus more on my thoughts and my theories about the episode. I am going to do a recap section, but if you want to skip that part, you can go to the timestamp right here. But otherwise, I am talking full spoilers, so if you have not seen this episode yet, go watch it on Disney Plus and then come back here because you do not want any of this spoiled. So let's go right into it. So this is the recap section. Again, you can go to the timestamp that I put on the screen before if you want to skip to my theories and stuff. All right, let's go. So this episode was interesting because we got a little more insight into the motivations of both Agatha Harkness and Director Hayward. But we also get to see up close and personal all the trauma that Wanda has gone through that, of course, we've seen in previous movies, but this is the episode where you finally see it from her perspective and the stuff that she had to deal with leading up to the creation of the Hex. First, this starts off, though, with a flashback of Agatha Harkness. By the way, Marvel is killing it with the de-aging process. They absolutely nail it now. They knock it out of the park every time. It was extremely seamless in this scene. I almost questioned if they even used it, but maybe it was just makeup. But as far as I can see, I think they did definitely de-age Catherine Hahn a little bit for this scene. So it's just amazing how far they've come. But anyway, basically we see Agatha Harkness being put on trial in the Salem witch trials, but the plot twist is this is not by some random townspeople. This is by her own coven, which is led by her mother. It seems like they were trying to execute her or something, but she did an Uno reverse on them, flipped it, and it instead started draining magic from them and their life force. Her mom then tries to do the same thing, but she also kills her mom and steals her brooch and flies off. So we get a little bit of an origin story for her, but it doesn't explain everything just yet. We do get some more information as the episode goes on. So then from there we go back to the dungeon under her house where Agatha and Wanda are together. Agatha Harkness is interrogating Wanda, trying to figure out how she was able to pull off the Hex. And we do find out in this monologue that she was in fact controlling Pietro, or as she calls it, Pietro, who's like a fake Pietro. And so back in the Halloween episode, when Pietro was speaking to Wanda about how she pulled all this off, that was actually Agatha Harkness speaking through him. And that makes me think that's why she was mumbling when Vision found her in the car in episode 6, I believe. Yeah. And that was probably her talking through Pietro, and so she was kind of mouthing the words there. I'd have to go back and watch to see if the dialogue matches up, but if it does, that's pretty crazy. So when Agatha's not satisfied with Wanda's answer, she decides, well, you know what? I think it's just time we go check everything firsthand. So they go basically on a journey through Wanda's memories, and we get 4 different flashbacks, 3 of which I think actually explain some of the commercials we've been seeing in the previous episodes, and then the others kind of filling in some gaps leading up to this event. The first one is Wanda's childhood with her parents and Pietro. Wanda and Pietro's dad brings home a bunch of VHSs that are all for old sitcoms, so that explains why Wanda chose that for her reality. But then things take a left turn and a bomb blows up near their complex, and so her parents are dead. This is explaining how her parents died. And we see the Stark missile that almost killed them. And then we hear that beeping noise, which we previously heard during the toaster sequence in that commercial, the first commercial of the series. Agatha was like, oh, so you stopped it, right? And she's like, no, it just didn't happen to go off. So overall, it seems like this episode was hinting a lot at Wanda already having some powers before the whole Infinity Stone thing. But we'll get there. The second flashback is Wanda with Hydra during the experiments. We see how she got her powers. We see them send her into this room with the Infinity Stone. It's still in Loki's staff. It breaks out of the staff, explodes, but apparently the scientists couldn't see what's actually happening. But from our end, we see that there's a big explosion and we see the Mind Stone there. But from the Mind Stone, it seems like this figure comes out of it that looks like Scarlet Witch. So it's like something is coming out to greet her, give her powers, or maybe it's a vision of the future. We're not really sure what that is, but the energy explodes onto her, and that's how she gets her enhanced powers. The third flashback we see is Vision coming to comfort Wanda after the death of her brother during the events of Age of Ultron. There's some really great chemistry here with Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen. It's a very sweet moment. Vision kind of talking about grief from his perspective because he doesn't really know what that's like since he was literally just born and he has no one to lose, as he said. He's had no one to lose. What is grief if not love persevering? And it's a very sweet moment. You see them give each other a look, and that, I think, is kind of the start of their romance there. Maybe not even the romance, but just the friendship part at least. But you can definitely see in how Wanda is looking at Vision that she's definitely feeling something there. Like, they have a really touching moment. It's very sweet. It also kind of parallels the moment she has with Steve back in Civil War, where he comes in to comfort her after the whole thing in Lagos. So that was an interesting parallel, but it was ultimately a very sweet scene. And now the final flashback that really pieces everything together. We see Wanda go to Sword headquarters to get Vision's body, not to steal it, but because she wants to have it to give him a proper funeral. But Hayward says, no, we can't let you have him because, he's worth billions of dollars. He's a weapon. He's made of vibranium. We can't just have that lying around, which is fair. We see Wanda break the glass to jump down into the little lab area where they're experimenting on Vision and ripping him apart, basically. She goes up to his head and puts her hand on it and says, I can't feel you, which is really the part that, hits you hard in the feels. And that also, again, is kind of a parallel to Infinity War, where they were talking about how they feel each other, or I only feel you. So, again, these parallels. But it's a really heartbreaking moment. But what's really notable is that she just walks out after this. She does not steal the body like Hayward said she did. So, obviously, he was lying there. And while she leaves, she gets in her car and there's a note there, which I'll get to later. And that note instructs her to go to Westview, New Jersey, where we are currently in the story. We see her drive through Westview and we see all the characters we've seen in the sitcom as normal people. But then we get to this plot of land that's kind of like a house that looked like it was there, but it was ripped out. It's just a foundation there. She opens the letter and it says to grow old in, and she just breaks down right there. Another heartbreaking scene. But that's also where her power just explodes and she creates the Hex. The most notable thing about this sequence is that we see her form a new Vision out of thin air. This is not the Vision we knew before. This is not the body she stole. This is an entirely new Vision, which explains why he has no memory of anything before the Hex. After this, Agatha finally figures out what's going on with Wanda. She says that she's using chaos magic and she is the Scarlet Witch, which is supposed to be a myth. After all this time, we finally get her superhero name. That was a great moment. But it also raises the question, what is chaos magic and what does that have to do with the Scarlet Witch? All right, theory time. So if you skipped ahead, welcome. We're going to get into some theories now. Of course, spoilers. Now, one of my biggest theories coming out of this episode is that the letter from Vision, the card that she opens up before everything goes crazy, I think that's not really from Vision. I don't know if anybody else has said that yet, but I don't think it's from Vision. Everybody in the series so far has called Vision either Vision or Wanda called him Viz. No one, as far as I remember, called him just V. He never referred to himself as V, so that's already suspicious. So in my mind, I'm thinking someone extremely powerful like Agatha Harkness saw the potential in Wanda and decided to exploit it. So they basically pushed her over the edge emotionally and caused her to create this crazy reality, create this big display of power, unlock this new element to her power for some nefarious purpose. We don't know yet. And throughout this episode, we saw Agatha Harkness was very curious and was trying to figure it out herself. And basically her motivation is not necessarily evil. After watching this episode, I'm like, okay, maybe she's not totally just evil. I mentioned this on Twitter. Last episode, song Agatha All Along, I think was slightly misleading because it made it seem like she was doing everything. But as we learned in this episode, it's not necessarily everything. She was kind of pulling strings as she came along. And she wasn't there from the beginning. We saw she kind of strolled in after she saw this big display of power. And she tried to take advantage of it to try and figure out what Wanda was doing and how she was doing it. She even used Pietro, which we'll also get to. But I think she's not necessarily bad. Well, at least not, we don't know for sure. Her methods of what she's doing are bad, but I don't think she's necessarily a villain. Maybe more of an antagonist. Maybe she's someone that will become good later. Because I think in the comics, she's supposed to be a mentor to Wanda. So it would make sense here why she's like, okay, how did you do this? I want to know. You're a powerful witch. I can see it in you. And on top of all that, I mentioned this earlier, it seems like they're kind of hinting at Wanda already having abilities before the stone got to her. So in a way, the stone's already enhancing something that was inside of her, or she was chosen by some entity, I guess the Scarlet Witch, if we're going to call it that. The Scarlet Witch somehow chose her and endued her with extra power somehow. That's part of it, maybe. That could explain one of the commercials, like the shark, for example, like a deal with the devil sort of thing. We still don't know for sure the scope of the powers and who's fully in control. If it's only Wanda, because we did see she created everything and she does have a lot of control, but I do still feel like there's a third party out there somewhere that hasn't revealed themselves just yet, but we're probably going to see them within the next 2 episodes. Because also, I think there's 2 episodes left. They're very confusing about that, but Disney or Marvel Studios on their official Twitter said there's 2 episodes left, so I'm going to go with that. Now, about Pietro, I really hope when she said it was a fake Pietro, I hope what she means is that she pulled Peter from the X-Men movies into this to pose as Pietro because he's essentially the same character, Quicksilver, right? That's where I'm hoping this is going, and not that he's just some fake person or some illusion that she created, like she found some random person and made them into this Evan Peters version of Quicksilver. I really hope that's not the case. I feel like she definitely pulled him out from somewhere because Marvel has already got in trouble with the Mandarin thing, right? Where they said they're going to use the Mandarin and then actually wasn't him. He is coming in a later movie, but that's kind of to correct what happened in Iron Man 3, which I didn't mind, by the way. But I feel like it'd be really weird and kind of dumb to make that same mistake again, to make fans angry by misleading them, making them think this big character is coming into the fold, but really they're not. So I don't think that's what's going on. I think this is definitely going to be the X-Men Quicksilver, but they just haven't confirmed it yet. And if it does turn out to be X-Men Quicksilver, then I think the surprise cameo that's supposed to be in the last couple episodes is probably going to be Magneto, and I would assume Michael Fassbender's version of Magneto, probably coming in saying, "Where's my son?" Trying to like fight whoever it is, whether it be Agatha or the other villain that's out there. He's gonna come for his son because he's probably gonna notice that something's off. And lastly, let's talk about Hayward, because there's also another end credit scene, which I didn't mention. In the end credit scene, we see that Hayward did still have Vision's body. He rebuilt it, and now it's all white with a new gem or something in the middle. So it turns out Project Cataract, the thing he's working on, was trying to rebuild Vision, reprogram him, repurpose him. But the problem they were struggling with was powering it because, of course, the Mind Stone is gone, and that was what gave Vision essentially life. So that's why he was going after Vision in the Hex, because that was a potential power source for this new Vision, or I guess the old Vision rebuilt. I don't know how you want to call it. To actually activate this new Vision, they used the energy from the drone that Wanda dragged back out, because it had a lot of Hex energy on it. They used that to power up this new Vision. So it's going to be very interesting to see these two clash. So I'm now thinking like Hayward, he's still suspicious and he's definitely up to something big, but his initial motivation to me sort of made sense in that flashback where he's like, we can't just give you Vision's body because this is a very dangerous, expensive weapon, right? And of course, Wanda would have wanted to bury him somewhere, but then when I think about it, there's no safe place really to bury him where someone else isn't going to come along to dig it up. Whether it's S.W.O.R.D., remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D., remnants of Hydra, who knows? But when I thought about it, I'm like, well, you know, he's kind of right. There's like no safe place to put him. No matter where they choose, if someone else finds out where he is, they're probably going to come for him. So it is a very tricky situation, but I do think he was kind of a jerk about it. And obviously he has ulterior motives and he's up to something nefarious. There is a theory about who he actually is. And I don't think I'm going to say it here because if it is true, that'd be a very big spoiler. But one thing I will say that I think they're doing on purpose is that they purposely are pushing people towards Age of Ultron. They're recommending that movie after every episode. So clearly there's some kind of connection. I mean, there is already the connection because it's part of her origin story, but I do think there's more to that, and that might play into what's going on with Hayward. We'll have to wait and see. But what do you think of my theories? What do you think of the episode? Let me know down in the comments. Let's have a spoiler talk in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.